Welcome back to the Snowpointcast. Today we're going to be taking a look at a deck from 2009 called MotherGar. MotherGar got top 16 at the World Championships in 2009, as well as a top 8 finish at US Nationals that year. It's definitely a strong archetype, but let's get right into it. So starting off with 4 Gastly. Gastly's got 50 HP, a single retreat, resistance to colorless, and a weakness to darkness. The first attack for free is an amazing attack, super good attack. For free, it's called Pitch Dark. You attack and then your opponent can't use any trainer cards from their hand during their next turn. So this just means not supporter cards, not stadium cards, but just trainer cards, because in 2009, the era meant that trainer cards didn't reference all those, only specific quote-unquote items now. Trainers that you can just play in one turn, but still really good. I mean, it has a lot of synergy with Poltergeist. Poltergeist is Gengar's attack that we're going to get into a second, but definitely a really strong attack. It just like stops your opponent from being able to pop off with rare candies on turn 1 as well. It's just a great attack. So, and then the other attack for 1 Psychic, Trick Gas for 10. You do 10 and then you can switch Gastly. Also pretty good if you are in a pinch or if your opponent is in a place where they can potentially knock you out. You don't really want to lose your energy if you can prevent it. So being able to switch is also a really good option. You also play 2 Haunter, just to, keep your line consistent. You play the Stormfront Haunter. I think it's definitely better. So 80 HP, single retreat, resistance to colorless, and a weakness to dark. Smog is another free attack. The Stormfront, use Stormfront, Gastly, and Haunters, and having a free attack is so good because it means that you can preserve an energy on the bench, and then if you want to attack but don't want to potentially sacrifice the energy, you get to do that. So Smog, the defending Pokemon, is now poisoned. That's great to be able to turn off powers. So if your opponent has something in the active that you really don't want to have powers, you can just turn that off for free, so that's great. And then Hoodwink is the second attack, also a really cool attack. So for 1 Psychic, it does 30, and then you can search your opponent's discard for up to 3 in any combination of trainer, supporter, and stadium cards and put them into your opponent's hand. So again, has some synergy with Poltergeist. Poltergeist on the Gengar. Let's just talk about the Gengar. So Gengar's got 110 HP, free retreat, resistance to colorless, and a weakness to dark. So feigning spell is the power. Once during your opponent's turn, if Gengar will be knocked out by damage from an attack, you may flip a coin. If it's heads, the defending Pokemon is knocked out. So super really good power, amazing power. 50% of the time, every time your opponent knocks you out, you just don't lose a prize. You keep even on the prize trade, which is ridiculous, especially if you play a game where you flip 3 or 4 feigning spell heads. You can just spell doom for your opponent because this deck takes prizes so effectively, and with the additional feigning spell, you can just take prizes so easily in this deck. So Shadow Room is the first attack on Gengar, really solid attack. So for 1 Psychic, put 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. If that Pokemon has any powers, put 6 instead. So this has a lot of use, especially because the sprites in this format are so good. So Azelf and Uxie have 70 HP, so being able to hit that for 60, and then you play a Crobat in this deck as well, so you just are able to hit that 70 with Shadow Room, and it's an easy 1 prize, and the sprites are so good, every deck plays them, so being able to just kill them for 1 energy is really good. And then Poltergeist, the second attack, is also really good. So for a Psychic and a Colorless, it does 30 times the amount of, you look at your opponent's hand, and then it does 30 times the amount of trainer, supporter, and stadium cards in their hand. So again, a lot of synergy with the Gastly, right? You lock them trainers, and then eventually if you go lock, rare candy, stage 2, Poltergeist, if you have the energy and then you attach another energy, you're likely hitting them for a ton of damage. So being able to Poltergeist for a lot is great. And then Haunter as well, again, synergizing with that, being able to, if your opponent has, let's say they have 3 stadiums in their discard, they can only play 1 a turn. And the stadium in this format that's often out is Broken Time Space. It's the stadium that every deck plays. So if you have 1 out because you play 1, your opponent can't play that card. So they're stuck with 3 trainer cards in their hand that they can't play. And if they don't have a shuffle draw supporter, it means that that's stuck in their hands. So Poltergeist is a really good attack, especially if you see your opponent with a big hand, and hands can get pretty big in this era. So this deck also plays a Nidoqueen line. It's pretty important. Starting off with Nidoran. So Nidoran's got 60 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Scratch for 10, 1 for 10, and then Offer Help is a super good attack. So for 2 colorless, search your deck for a supporter card, show it to your opponent, put it in your hand. If you're bricking to the point where you have to attach 2 to Nidoran, at least you're not just attacking with a really mediocre attack. You gotta search your deck for a supporter and then potentially get back in the game. And then you play 1 Nidorina as well. So 80 HP, 2 retreat, and then a weakness to Psychic. Jump, tackle for 1 colorless. Nidorina does 10 damage to itself, and then you don't apply weakness or resistance to this damage, so it does but 30 damage to the opponent. And then stress poison for a psychic and double colorless. If Nidorina has any damage counters on it, it does 40 plus 20, and then the defending Pokemon is now poison. So definitely an interesting attack if you are in a situation where you have to use it. Being able to poison your opponent, again, being able to shut off powers is a good ability to have, and it's just a good attack to know that you have. But you play that to play the Nidoqueen. So 120 HP, 3 retreat, a resistance to lightning, and a weakness to psychic. The Pokebody is the big reason you play it, a really, really good Pokebody. So anytime in between turns, remove 1 damage counter from each of your Pokemon, and you can't use more than 1 maternal body a turn. But Gengar's free retreat makes that so good, because you can just like have 3 Gengars on the bench, or 2 Gengars on the bench, and then like 1 active, and you can go like, you know, Shadow Room something, put 60 or 30 on something, and then you take a hit, and then you retreat to another Gengar, and then you start healing the Gengar that took a hit. And when you're combining the maternal comfort healing with feigning spell, like not only are you getting so much out of your damage, like your Shadow Rooms, you have so many more Shadow Rooms when you're able to heal. Also, feigning spell is like keeping you even on prizes. So not only are you healing off the damage that they're doing, when they do eventually take a knockout, they might just be so far behind because you flip 1 or 2 feigning spell heads. So definitely a really interesting body, and it's super good in this deck for sure. It's also a good attacker in some situations as well. So Mega Punch for 1 does 40. Kind of good against sprites. You're able to kill a sprite for 1 because it's got that. I think it's it's plus 20. So you need a bat drop as well. But being able to just, you know, bat drop, Mega Punch a sprite is good. Being able to hit for psychic weakness is good in general. And then Ruthless Tail is kind of interesting as well. So for 1 psychic, 2 colorless, it is 50 plus 10 damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Definitely really useful if your opponent decides to fill their bench, and especially in this format, it's a pretty evolution based format. So usually the benches are pretty full. So definitely some situations where you can use that attack as well. You also play 2 Baltoy. So Baltoy's just to play the Claydol, but it's got 50 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to grass. Psychic Balance is the one that you play. Definitely the better Baltoy, I think. So for 1, if you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, and then you draw to match your opponent. So again, if you're just like bricking, you can just attach an energy and then hopefully draw out of it. And then spin turn, you don't play a fighting, so I'm not going to talk about that attack. But you do play these for Claydol. So Claydol is an awesome consistency Pokemon. So 80 HP, 2 retreat, a weakness to grass. Cosmic Power is the reason you play it. So once your turn before you attack, you can choose up to 2 cards from your hand, put them to the bottom of your deck, and then draw up to 6. So Claydol is so good in this deck because a lot of the cards that you play in this deck are instants, or cards that you can just play out, right? And when you're able to just burn cards from your hand, Cosmic Power becomes that much more powerful, because you can have like a hand of 4, burn 3 of them, Cosmic 1, and then just draw up to 6. And again, Cosmic Power is just like such a good power. It's like staple in a lot of the stage 2 decks just because of how good of a power it is. And then again, don't play fighting, so can't spinning attack. But you do play 2 Uxie as well. So another draw Pokemon in with Claydol. So Claydol helps you draw up to 6. Uxie, when you bench it, lets you draw up to 7. So again, another really good draw out. This deck really does well as soon as you're able to start popping off. If you hit a combo like turn 1, if you're able to hit like a Gengar and a Nidoqueen, that's a lot of pressure for your opponent, because they're starting to get Shadow Roomed. If they have anything with a Pokemon power, it just means that it's going to get hit for 60 this turn and then probably knocked out the next turn. So having that early pressure is really good. And I think 2 Uxie just lets you draw a bunch of cards and lets you hit those combos so that you can hit that early pressure. Okay, so getting into the one-ofs. So you play 1 Unown G. Unknown Guard. So Unown G, he's got 50 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to psychic. So you play it for Guard. Guard essentially stops effects of attacks. So a big reason that you play this is for Gengar. Shadow Room. If you have let's say you have a Claydol out, and then it has a guard on it. So how guard works is you bench it and then you use it as a tool. So you're like, okay, I'm going to activate guard, and then you put it on the Claydol. Okay. And then when that happens, if your opponent has a Gengar and they try to Shadow Room you, that's an effective attack. The attack doesn't actually do any damage on Gengar, but the Shadow Room is like drop counters. So when you have a G attached, it just means that all effects of attack don't happen. And a big reason that you play G is for Gengar, because if they double hit you for 60, they 2-shot your Claydol, and then your consistency is shot, and being able to prevent that is a pretty big deal for sure. There's a couple other niche uses for it as well. It's pretty good against Flygon, especially the Memory Berry variant. When they have the ability to lock you active or bring you up, that makes it a lot tougher for sure. So you play one Crobat as well. Crobat's got 80 HP, free retreat, resistance to fighting, and a weakness to psychic. Oh, I guess I'll talk about the attack on Unknown, because that's actually kind of relevant. So for one psychic and one colorless, because you play psychic, if Unown G has any damage counters on it, this damage is 10. But if you don't have any damage, I mean, psychic colorless for 50 is pretty good, especially because there's so many Pokemon in this format that have 50 HP. So being able to know that that's a donk option that you have is definitely good. I mean, you knock a guard, you knock a Baltoy, you knock Gastly. Most of the stage 2 Pokemon in this format have a basic that has 50 HP. So definitely an interesting attack to note that you have, especially if your opponent is kind of starting with not much other than a 50 HP Pokemon. Knowing that you have that attack is good. So yeah, Crobat. Flashbite is the big reason that you play Crobat. So Flashbite, when you bench Crobat, you drop a damage counter somewhere on your opponent's board. And again, that has a lot of synergy with Shadow Room because the sprites, Uxie and Azelf have 70 HP, so Shadow Room almost kills them. And then when you have a Crobat, it just puts you over the top so that you can hit your numbers and hit that one shot. And then you also, so Toxic Fang is also pretty good. So for a Psychic and a Colorless, if the defending Pokemon, is poisoned, put 2 damage counters instead of 1 in between turns. So being able to poison your opponent's active and knowing that you have that power, it's pretty relevant in this format because of power is getting shut off by special conditions. So when you're able to poison your opponent, I mean, there are some situations where you really want them to not have their power if they're active, and Toxic Fang does have some niche uses as well. It's usually like, I mean, if you're having to attach to a Crobat, your hand is probably pretty bad, but knowing that you have that attack out is just good. I think you do play one Azelf as well, just to keep you consistent. So 70 HP, single retreat, and a weakness to psychic. Time Walk, when you bench Azelf, you get to look at your prizes, pick a Pokemon that you find there, and then switch it with a card in your hand. So again, you play a ton of Pokemon in this deck, and it's pretty important to have all the Pokemon that you have access to. Your main attacker is Gengar, so if you don't have access to like a Gastly, it just means that you're attacking with 3 Gengars until you can find that, and just finding your pieces is really important. Sometimes a Crobat, if your Crobat gets prized too, that can be important, or a Claydol. Just being able to access your prizes is good too. And then lock up for Psychic. One Psychic, it does 20, and then the defending Pokemon can't retreat during their next turn. Definitely good to know that you have, just because there are some situations where you really don't want your opponent to retreat. And when you give them that option, it can be bad, but just knowing that you have the option to stop them from retreating because you do play Psychic Energy is good. So getting into the trainers now, I play 4 Rare Candy. Rare Candy is super good. So it says choose one of your basic Pokemon in play. If you have a stage 1 or stage 2 card that evolves from that Pokemon, you can just put it onto that Pokemon. So it essentially just breaks the evolution rule. One thing that I really like about Rare Candy that you could do is you can go Baltoy, Candy, Claydol, and it just helps you be really consistent on your turn 1s because you get to pop off that much more often if you have that out. But also being able to skip the stage 1 line, you gotta go Gastly, and then you can Rare Candy and just skip the Haunter and go into Gengar. That's really, really fast as well, and just helps you be very aggressive, and that's what this deck thrives on. So you also play 3 Pokédex HANDY910s. So this is kind of a little bit different than some of the MotherGar lists that I've seen. I think Pokédex, so I had Pokédrawer Plus in here initially, and then I changed it for Pokédex and a second Poketurn. I had 1 Poketurn and then a Crobat and 4 Pokédrawer Plus. Pokédrawer Plus is kind of cool. I think it could deserve a spot in this deck, but it's just a little bit more high roll. Like you have to hit 2 of them at once for it to be really good. There was a game that I was playing recently where I was really desperate for a broken time space, so I used an Uxie for 2, and then I hit 2 Pokédrawer Plus, and that was really sweet, and I love that. But even though like that was super sick and I loved hitting it, I just think it's less consistent than Pokedex. I mean, Pokedex, you get a look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one of them, put them in your hand, and then choose the other one, goes to the bottom of your deck. Pokédrawer Plus lets you see 1 and potentially search 2, but I think being able to just see more of your deck is also really good. And it also gives you an extra slot so that you can play the second Poketurn, and I think that's pretty important as well. I've seen some Gengar lists play 2 Crobat, and I think that's pretty strictly wrong, just because you don't have the bench space for it, right? Like your optimal board is probably going to be like 3 Gengars, a Nidoqueen, a Claydol, and then another one of these, you know, whether that's a Bat or an Uxie or an Azelf or whatever. And you just don't have the space for second Crobat. Sometimes you don't even have the bench space for 1 Crobat. So I think playing 2 Crobat is pretty wrong, but Poketurn is great because it lets you just pick that bat up and utilize that same bench spot to get the KOs on sprites, because you do need that bat damage to be able to KO sprites. It's pretty important. So you also play 2 Warp Point. I think Warp Point is one of the greatest cards in this format. It's such a good card. So it forces your opponent to switch their active with one of their bench Pokemon, then you do the same. You really don't care because Gengar has free retreat, and yeah, like you just put a Gengar up, or you just put up whatever's attacking and then attack with that. And that's usually a Gengar anyway. But Warp Point is great because it means that if your opponent ever has anything like a big level X, so they have like a Flygon level X in the active, and you're like, I can't kill this turn because you have 4 cards in your hand, you can just Warp Point and then, you know, potentially kill something else. Warp Point's also great because it sticks their Flygon level X on the bench, and then they're not milling you for a turn, so that can be really good as well. But yeah, just a really good card. Lets you switch if they drag up your Claydol as well. There's just like a lot of really good uses for Warp Point. Just a really good card. And then you do play 1 Night Maintenance as well. So Night Maintenance is a recovery card. Search your discard for 3 in any combination of basic energy and Pokemon, and then you show them to your opponent and shuffle them in your deck. So again, that attacking line that you play for Gengar is only a 4/2/4. So you have to be able to get those Gengars back to attack with them more. Honestly, you want to be attacking with as many Gengars as you can. Just because Feigning Spell is so good. Like if you're able to attack with 5 Gengars in a game, odds are you're going to flip at least 2 Feigning Spell heads, and that's a pretty big deal. Like if you flip 50-50 on your Feigning Spell flips, I find that like it's usually enough to win you the game because Gengar is such a powerful card by itself. The addition of hitting a Feigning Spell heads just means that like you're that much further ahead when you're playing against a deck that's taking prizes against you. You do play a Luxury Ball as well. Luxury Ball just lets you search your deck for any Pokemon that's not level X, show it to your opponent, put it in your hand. You don't play level X Pokemon in this deck because Gengar level X isn't out. I think you'd probably play it if it was out, but it's not. So yeah, just search your deck for any Pokemon. It's a really, really good card. Finds you a Claydol, finds you literally anything that you need. So I think as a 1-up, it's super good. You can't play it, like you don't play more than because when it's in your discard pile, you can't play another one. So you just play 1, but it is a really, really good card. And then you play 2 Broken Time Space as well. So Broken Time Space is literally broken. It lets you evolve as many times as you want during your turn. And that's just really great because it lets you set up a really fat board, right? So Claydol lets you draw more based off the less cards you have in your hand. So when you're able to play down those Pokemon that you usually wouldn't be able to play out, it just lets your Claydols be better, and it lets your Uxies be better. And honestly, just a really staple card. Like every stage 2 deck in this format plays at least 2 of these. It's just an amazing, amazing card. So it makes a lot of sense that Gengar plays 2 of these as well. And then getting the supporters now, you play 4 Roseanne's Research. So Roseanne's Research is a super solid supporter. Search your deck for 2 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards, show them to your opponent, and then put them in your hand. That's great for finding basic psychics, but it also helps you find like your Baltoys and your Gastlys. And if you need to draw a bunch of cards in a turn too, it lets you find an Uxie to hopefully draw some cards. But yeah, Roseanne's is a staple in this format. Really good supporter. It's just an amazing supporter. And you play 3 Bebe Search as well. So Bebe Search, choose a card from your hand, put it on the top of your deck, and then search your deck for a Pokemon card, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your deck afterwards. So this is great for finding evolution cards. You're able to find your Gengars, you're able to find your Claydols, your Nidoqueens, and it just keeps you consistent because you have Roseanne's and Call to find your basics, and then Bebe Search finds those evolutions for you. You do play 2 Looker's Investigation as well. I think Looker's is a great card in this deck. Just the main reason you play Looker's is for Poltergeist. You know, it really, depending on what your opponent's hand is, even if they have like 6 cards in their hand, they might have like 4 Pokemon and an energy. Like you really never know, especially in this format because there's a lot of Pokemon in this format. But when you Looker's Investigation, you just get to straight look at their hand. So look at your opponent's hand, then choose either you or your opponent, and then that player shuffles their hand to their deck and draws 5 cards. So it's a pretty good consistency card as well. I mean, Shuffle Draw 5 isn't amazing, but it's better than nothing for a supporter for turn. And also being able to switch your opponent's hand up. Like if they have nothing in their hand, but they have a really great hand, like no trainers in their hand, but they have a great hand, you're just able to say, I'll Lookers you shuffle your hand in, and then if I really need a Poltergeist KO this turn, hopefully you draw some trainers off of the Lookers, and then I'll kill you off of a Poltergeist. But it also lets you just see your opponent's hand so that if they do have enough trainers for you to Poltergeist KO out of a hand of like 5 or 6 or 7, that like weird middle range where they might or might not get knocked out, you just get to guarantee the correct attack. Because if you're not getting a KO with Poltergeist, a lot of the times a Shadow Room is going to be better. But it really depends on what your opponent's hand is, and you can't know that unless you Lookers. So that's why Lookers is such a good card in this deck. You play 2 Cynthia's Feelings as well. So Cynthia's Feelings is a shuffle draw 4, but if one of your opponent or one of your Pokemon got knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you draw 4 more cards. So you shuffle draw 8 instead, and you do get knocked out a fair amount with this deck. It's only single prizes, so I mean it's going to happen at least once in a game. And being able to shuffle draw 8 lets you hit those crazy combos where you go like, where you find, you know, Crobat or your Poketurn or your rare candy into whatever. It just lets you hit your big pop-off turn after your opponent KOs you. And especially if you had one Gengar on the field and your opponent kills your Gengar and you don't have a Gengar in hand, being able to Cynthia's Feelings to potentially find that return Gengar is pretty important for sure. Okay, so getting to the energy now, you play 3 Call energy. Call is a super good card, so it's a colorless energy, but if it's attached to your active Pokemon, you can activate Call. Call ends your turn, and then you can search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. So that means that they're in play at the end of your turn so that you can evolve them next turn. So just a really good consistency card, lets you find basic Pokemon, and you do have a fair amount of colorless attacks that you need to fulfill. So being able to hit that colorless, like Poltergeist requires a colorless as well, so it's not a complete waste because you're able to fulfill some attack costs with it as well. So you also play 7 Psychic Energy. So 7 Psychic and a Night Maintenance makes a lot of sense. It's kind of just, 7 and then 10 total with the calls. But yeah, so this is MotherGar. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get to them. But thanks so much for tuning in and we'll see you next time.